All right, welcome everybody to RPO Football's YouTube channel. My name is Matthew Montgomery, and this week I am super pumped to not be talking to my walls in these four rooms. Feel like the mattresses and the walls are closing in, right? I am here with SC Romero, or Miguel, as you are seeing on the Zoom link here. Miguel, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, bro, I gave away my legal name there. People know me as SC, but it's all good, man. I mean, Miguel Romero, SC Romero, whatever you want to call me, at the PPR so on X. Definitely humbled and blessed. You asked me to come on here and talk some IDP. We're with RPO Football, who's, with one of the leaders in IDP and, Master IDP Leo. So, just excited to talk some defense. Defense wins championships. So let's get into it.
Heck yeah. So, what we're going to do today is we are going to do each of us having two picks for every layer of defense. So, defensive line, linebackers, and defensive backs. And because you are the guest today, I would like you to start us off. So, you have pick 1 1 in our IDP, anything goes draft. Who are you taking?
Yeah, so in IDP, man, linebackers are real. So I'm gonna start off with the linebacker here, and I'll get who my 101 is. People may go against it. It's not gonna be Olucon. I'm gonna get Roquan Smith. I've always been a fan of the Baltimore Ravens, since their earlier days with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, all that kind of stuff. They know how to develop their defenses. And really a big part is I know people love Olucon and he hasn't given us reason to sway away from him, but he has an up and coming linebacker there in Devin Lloyd too, who I really love, who it could be any time when Devin Lloyd just kind of flips over and
Right.
takes that spot. Where Roquan, they got rid of Patrick Queen. You had Trenton Simpson there. Roquan's the guy there still. So I really love him. So that'll be my 101 right now in IDP.
Well, he's actually my IDP one. If I was ranking everybody right now, Roquan says my number one, and it's exactly for the reasons that you just mentioned. But I especially think he's old reliable. You know what you're
Hmm.
going to get with him, and I feel like the same with you. You're building an IDP roster with linebackers, and
Hmm.
my favorite thing to do is build with a tackle floor. You know
Hmm.
what you're going to get, the consistency. You're going to get those points. So I don't think it's a bad pick at all. It's probably who I would have taken, but because you didn't take him, now I got to go with Foye.
Hmm.
Foye is just one of those guys where he popped 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like, who the heck is this guy? But ever
Hmm.
since then, he's just been a perennial top 2 to 3 option in this entire game. He's had
Hmm.
3 straight seasons of 170 plus tackles. That is unbelievable. I think if you were ranking these guys, they'd be 1A and 1B as opposed to 1 and 2. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. So it's not shocking at all that these are the first two that we're going off the board because even at 28 years old with Foye, I think that it maybe we've seen the peak, but I don't think it's going to be a dip. I think we're going to plateau here for a little bit. I think we're going to
Yeah.
get 2 or 3 more years of this consistency before we see any sort of dip.
Hmm.
Guy came out of Yale, so high
Hmm.
level human being. He's not just all muscle, all tackles. The dude's got a brain for the game too, and I think that goes a
Yeah,
long way.
for sure.
All
I
right, so
absolutely
who
agree.
you taking with your second pick here?
Man, let's just keep streamlining and keep it with the linebackers. Plenty of linebackers, man. But I gotta go with the guy I just fell in love with since he was drafted, and that's Patrick Queen. Just really love him. I think he might take the green dot spot there in Pittsburgh, and this could definitely be a new opportunity for him to find success. He kind of got overshadowed when him and Roquan joined up, in Baltimore there, and so. I know TJ Watt's there, but TJ Watt's more of your edge guy. I'm not expecting crazy sacks from Patrick Queen, but I definitely think he could rack up the tackles. I think he could be their guy there. And you have Highsmith, and Watt on the outside, and Patrick Queen could come get that. And really, it goes to say the AFC North. The AFC North has grit when it comes to their defense, and Patrick Queen is a definition of that. He fits that mold. He didn't move out of the AFC North. He stayed there. He knows what the competition level is like. And I think really he's there to say, hey, Baltimore, y'all messed up, and I'm gonna play y'all 2 times a year this year, so or moving forward. So I know there's tons of linebackers you could go on with, but that's one of those are my top three guys, the ones we just took. So I,
Yeah.
I would take Patrick Queen there.
Heck yeah. See, I love how you said the AFC North grit because despite this Richard Sherman jersey I'm rocking right now, I am a huge Bengals fan. So I've
Mhm.
always been AFC North, man. It's a different style of football. It almost feels old school with a new wave offenses now coming in there too. It's really cool to see. Well,
Yeah.
because the linebackers are starting to dry up, I think I'm going to try to get the edge on you here. No pun intended. I'm taking Max Crosby with my next pick. What can you say about Max Crosby, man, that hasn't already been said about every high level player that you see in this game? He's 26 years old. That's a great thing for Dynasty because I believe he's right at the center of his peak, if not still ascending. He's had 89 and 90 tackles the last 2 seasons. He had 8+ sacks in all seasons but one so far. And he's 6'5, 256 pounds. The dude is just a monster of a man. Now, obviously, we know high level athletes are in the NFL. So maybe those numbers don't pop as much for you as they do for me.
Hmm.
But I also love the fact that the Raiders brought in Christian Wilkins this season, who
Hmm.
is a legitimate pass rushing threat from the interior. And Max
Hmm.
Crosby's been doing this a lot on his own. He's been
Hmm.
the star on this defense. I believe that offensive lines have schemed to try to take him out of the game unsuccessfully. So now that they have to look at a Christian Wilkins and they have to look and go, okay, we have to respect this guy. It's going to give Max Crosby more opportunities for potential one on one. And I
Hmm.
believe that Max Crosby in one-on-one situations, I'm taking him every single time. And like I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, high tackle floor, but he's got that big play upside too. And he looks like a Raider. When you look
Hmm.
at the Raiders and you think of that tough nose, gritty, like, oh man,
Right.
I do not want to mess with this dude. That's Max Crosby in a nutshell, man. So
100%.
how could you not love a guy like that?
Yeah, 100%. And I was trying to streamline. This is something you don't do in drafts, right? Because I did reach on Patrick Queen because I would have taken Max Crosby, and I
Yeah.
should have done the
Yeah.
read part. But that's
Yeah.
that's 101 drafts don't do that. We're just talking about some of our guys here, but Max Crosby, great guy. I mean, you mentioned Christian Wilkins. I also want to bring up Malcolm Coots, who kind of
Mm.
elevated last year to kind of be on the opposite side of him there too. So I love what Crosby's done. He said he wants to be a Raider for life, and I agree with you. He is basically that definition of a Raider there, if you will.
Heck yeah.
Um,
So who you taking now, man? What you got?
so I meant to ask you this earlier. With the edge, are we doing straight like DL, or are we doing the mix of linebacker DL kind of dual dip? Where do you
So
want to
I was
go?
gonna say, so if this was my team, I like to look for that dual position stuff. So if you're leaning that way, I don't blame you at all. So
Okay.
I'll leave that up to you. I don't mind either
Okay.
way, but I definitely look at those dudes that can do both because that flexibility in your lineup can really help you win weeks.
Okay, so then the guy I'm going with is a guy that can play that, he's the edge rusher. That's what he does. He's outside linebacker, edge rusher, gets on the line too. But that's gonna be another Jacksonville Jaguar and Josh Allen. I really enjoyed what he did this past year. 17 and a half sacks, came in. It feels like he's finally getting his feet under him. He's finally doing what he knows how to do, and that is just attack the quarterback. And again, with Foye out there, with Devin Lloyd back there, the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is trying to become that hard hitting attacking defense in the AFC South. And I think that starts with, of course, Foye, but it also starts with the pressure they get up front. And Josh Allen is that guy. So I'm gonna go with him. I think he's just gonna continue to ascend at the level that we saw him to this past year. He is not the career high in tackles with 66 last year, but definitely a career high in 17 and a half sacks. Does he get more than that? That I don't know about that, but I think he's definitely gonna start getting those double digit sacks just moving forward because I finally feel like he's understands what his role is in that defense.
So I love that pick. I had him on there thinking I was going to sneak him in because I feel like a lot of people forget about him because he does have those boom bust weeks. But this actually brings up a question that I have for you. When you're playing in a game like this and you have to build with players that are potential boom and bust, and Josh
Mhm,
Allen, I think for the majority of his career was pretty high boom or high bust.
mhm,
How do you plan for a player like Josh Allen? Do you just put chips in the middle and you're like, you know what, I'll live and die by this? Or do you have a
mhm.
strategy when looking for players like him?
Well, I mean, it comes down to, you build your roster to have depth. So if I believe he might be a boom or bust, I think he's more on that boom ascension now. That's where you got to go with, and have the right guys around it just to be that supporting cast. When you get a guy like him, though, again, the years prior to last year, it was looking like, all right, is he really going to get to it? We saw
Yeah,
2 years
oh,
ago he had
wishy-washy, right?
Right, a few years ago, he had 70 plus tackles, which was like, oh, awesome. But with that, he had 7.5 sacks. So he really didn't do anything as far as creating that pressure since his rookie season of 10.5 sacks that year. He kind of went down, and then two the year before last. So this past year, though, again, I just feel he's finally understanding that with some of these IDP players like Trevon Walker, he hasn't really been that guy with being a number one overall pick. But I think with these IDPs, it's like, man, you gotta get your feet wet. It's not the same in
No.
college anymore. You gotta understand and build your body up and get aggressive. And I think Josh Allen's on that path where he's starting to do it, and he's still young, And I know people might go TJ Watt, they might go Nick Bosa, or even Daniel Hunter maybe, but I really love what Josh Allen's doing, and I think he is again. There's a trifecta there in Jacksonville with Devin Lloyd, Josh Allen, and Foye, and I think that's a big part. If any of them go down in that defense, it hurts the defense overall.
Heck yeah, man. I love that strategy. I love that insight. Thank you so much. So now I am going to go back to linebacker with my pick. I got a toss up between two, but I'm going to lean with my gut here. And I'm taking Bobby Okereke of the New York Giants. I think he's one of the most underrated players at this position. And I think it's because he was never looked at as the main guy when he first came
Mhm,
into the league. He came into the league and he was going against Darius, formerly known as now Shaquille Leonard in
mhm,
Indianapolis. And when you're going next to a guy like that, you're going to be overshadowed just because of the sheer talent that he had. Now, last season was the first season where I would consider him the main linebacker of a team when he was with the New York Giants, and he had
mhm,
a career year. He was one of those guys. He had 130 plus tackles in 3 straight seasons. He had career highs in every single statistical category as the linebacker one. So there you go. When given the
mhm,
opportunity, he shined. I believe he will continue to shine for your team. He's 27 years old. 27 years old. And like I said earlier, he's at that plateau point. I don't know if we're
mhm,
going to see more than what we saw, but we saw his career best season. And if he can
mhm,
replicate those as averages, he is a solid linebacker. And see, when we were talking boom bust, and I do more boom bust with my edge rushers because I think
mhm,
a high level edge rusher can win you a week. I don't like to do that with my linebackers. I think your linebackers have to be your foundation. They have to be like your
mhm.
jab if you were in boxing. They can't be your right hook or
Right,
your uppercut. They got to be that steady
right,
jab. You have to be able to compete. I
right.
think Okereke fits that mold perfectly. You know what you're going to get. The disappointing weeks aren't going to kill you, and the high level weeks probably don't win you weeks, but they will keep
Mhm.
you in contention with your opponent. And I like to build teams like that. So now,
100.
with all of that word salad being said, I want you to go to your next pick. I'm excited to see it because
Yeah.
you've kind of shocked me. I mean, Bobby Okereke was like my Patrick Queen. I don't wasn't
Mhm.
expecting Patrick Queen from you, and I'm gonna bet my bottom dollar you probably weren't expecting Okereke from me. So I'm excited to see where your
Uh,
mind is now that we're getting
uh,
into the later rounds of our fake little draft.
For sure, man. Okereke was on my radar. That's in the RPO dynasty that we got, that's my guy. I got Okereke too. So
He's so good.
yeah. And I agree with you. He was overshadowed by Shaquille, when he was there. Shaquille injured his back. And then Zaire Franklin came in and injured
Oh
his
man.
face. But Okereke, man, he was under the radar, and I think he really took that leadership role for the Giants defense, and we
Hmm.
see a new defensive strategy, what they do with him. So I'm gonna fill it out, right? So I got Queen, Roquan, and then I picked up Josh Allen, the edge rusher, not the quarterback here. And
Yes.
then I'm gonna
Anyone will
go
do.
right, and I'm gonna go with the young stallion here, or the young lion, I should say, when it comes to the edge, and I'm gonna go Aiden Hutchinson here.
Ooh.
Again, I like these guys that are grit. We'll refer to Dan
Mhm.
Campbell, buy them at the kneecaps. I think that's what Hutchinson does, man. He gets around the edges, and I know they got Jack Campbell there. I know they have Alex Anzalone there. They have some linebackers there, but I really feel like this defensive leader is Hutchinson. I know they want Campbell to get into that role, but Hutchinson's came out the year with his rookie season with 9.5 sacks. He came out last year with 11.5 sacks. He's elevating. He's
Yeah.
he's understanding the game more and more. And he was in Michigan, right? No, yeah,
Yeah.
Michigan in
Yeah.
college. And so he stayed in Detroit. And that just shows like he's still home. So I
Mhm.
feel more so than any other team he was drafted to, it just means so much more for him to try to win with Detroit because, like, man, I'm home still, right? So,
Right.
I really love what he's doing, and with him being so young at 23 years old, there's so much more to gain
Yeah.
from him, and I feel people may not have him as their 101 right now, and I don't. I mean, Max Crosby is when it comes to the DL, but Hutchinson he's gonna be a top defensive end before it's all done.
Yeah.
He's gonna be maybe not this year, the next. He's gonna end up being the 101 on defensive line for
Mhm.
your fantasy radar just because he's that good and he understands the game on how to get better. He's not someone that just goes out there and uses his strength. He uses his hand movements, he uses his feet, he knows how to do the swim and dip. He knows everything to be great, and he's constantly getting better. And the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell has a fantastic system of what they're doing. And so I would take him because I think we've only seen the surface, the tip of the iceberg. We haven't seen underneath the water yet. And I feel like we're going to continue to get that because it's, global warming, right? So it's going to keep going and you're going to see more and more. So no, I really like Hudson. So I'm going to go with Hudson here.
Heck yeah, man. I really like to see a player like Hutchinson. A lot of times you'll see a player drafted and the conversation isn't about, okay, they fit their draft spot. The conversation is always, oh, they reached or oh, he's not living up to potential. Aiden Hutchinson, I think even for as high as he was drafted by the Lions, has exceeded expectations early. The guy has come into the league and hasn't missed a beat. And like you said, he's playing at home. So those first game jitters, like, yeah, they were probably immense. I'm sure he was probably living a true dream. But can you imagine the adrenaline of playing in front of your hometown? Your
Right,
hometown team picked you and invested their future in you with their first pick. That is a
right,
huge deal. And he has done nothing but deliver for that franchise. It's super cool to see. They're the Lions, man. So everybody
right.
always used to make fun of, but then you see a legit team with legit playmakers, and then they have a stud on defense. I wouldn't want
Yeah.
to play him, man. I wouldn't want to play him.
He brings that energy of what Max Crosby brings to the Raiders too. He just
100%.
that energetic, that passion for the game that some people lose when they get drafted. To be real,
Yeah.
they're just like, oh, I made it to NFL. That's it.
Content.
He has that passion and he wants to get better and be like, man, I want to be the top paid defensive lineman when it's all said and done. And I
Heck
think
yeah.
he's on that trajectory.
Well, now that you've hyped up edge rushing, I'm gonna have to go back and get my edge rusher here, and I'm gonna take a guy that dynasty managers may cringe if I take him this high, but Daniil Hunter. I know that it's scary that he's almost that dreaded 30, that ugly,
Mhm,
disgusting old number, right, for the NFL that we all hate to
mhm,
talk about. And on top of that, he is on a new team this year. So now everything's going to change. We don't know who
mhm,
he is. He's suddenly a different player. He is
mhm,
going to pair with arguably his best defensive line teammate of his career.
mhm,
And Daniil Hunter is a fringe Hall of Famer right now, I believe. I think that he puts together one or two more seasons like this. I think he's a lock for the Hall of Fame if he's not already. He has had 10 plus sacks in half of the seasons of his career. He's never had less than five, and that was his rookie season when he had five. He's had 60 plus tackles in four of the last five seasons. And while I may think the peak is maybe leveling off a little bit, and I don't even think we're on the plateau, we may see some dissension. The fact
mhm,
that Will Anderson is a legitimate pass rushing threat for the Houston Texans will help him achieve numbers. They're not going to be able to double team Neil Hunter because they tried to one on one with Will Anderson last season and he showed that he's a legit threat. I think that you can't double, you might have to double team Will Anderson at times. And if you're giving me Daniil Hunter in one on one, I will take that every single time. It's almost like a pick your poison approach if you're on the
mhm,
offensive side of the ball. Who do you think is going to be the guy that day and try to block him? But I'm afraid that the Texans may take the league by storm here. I know everybody's kind of talking and hyping up the Texans, and rightfully so because of their offense, but they have made some sneaky offseason moves on the defensive side as well.
mhm.
And I think with the addition of Daniil Hunter, their pass rushing threat may be a top five unit in the entire league. And I am going to invest in a team like that. I don't care what the ages are. I don't care, 31, 32, 29. That's what Daniil Hunter is currently.
Mhm.
I want a guy that I know can do it with teammates that are just as effective because then
Right.
you are just playing one on one with the guy in front of you. And we've seen in the past that Daniil Hunter can achieve high numbers when given that opportunity.
For sure. And no, I mean, Texans, I feel with the offense being so great that it was last year with Stroud, people may have forgot who the head coach is. It's D'Amico Ryans, who's a former
Yeah.
linebacker, and not only a former linebacker from that played in Houston, but a former linebacker from Alabama. Like defense runs in this guy's blood. So I mean, there could have been a perfect match. I know you're talking about Will Anderson, but really that match is, him and D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryan understands the game on the defensive side, and what I love about it, because we saw the Texans transition from head coach year after year for a little bit and just kind of rotate their coaches. I feel they're invested in D'Amico because I feel D'Amico says, "Hey, this is my plan. I have a 4-year plan, whatever it may be, and this is my goal." And he's bringing that culture, a new culture that Houston's been missing for so long, to him. And it's let's get a great quarterback. We got our 101 in Stroud, and now let's get this defense up and rolling. And I feel they're doing that, and it starts with D'Amico, but bringing in a veteran who has some leadership and some capability of attacking the quarterbacks like Daniel Hunter.
Mhm.
Not only if it's going to elevate him to continue to have a great season, Will Anderson's also going to feed and be better from it as well. And you love to see that when you get a guy like him to pair with a young guy like Will Anderson. So great pick.
IDP legend D'Amico Ryan's talk on here. I love that,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Way to throw that back. All right, so we have filled all of the meat positions. Everybody loves edge rushers. Everybody loves linebackers. Personally, though, I think safety may be my favorite position on the football field. I think it's the most versatile. I think you were asked to do the most. You have to be a hard enough hitter to take down these Derrick Henry like running backs. You got to be fast enough to keep up with the Tyreek Hills of the league, but you also have to be able to play zone coverage, man coverage, stop the run. You got to do everything but wear the green dot essentially.
Hmm.
So
Right.
there are high level athletes to choose from in this. You got this pick here. Who are you taking as the first safety off the board?
So I'm pretty sure when you did your safety rankings or your DB rankings, you had one guy at 101 and the guy that was at 102. I was like, that's my 101. And you had said something like, I believe it. If I'm not mistaken, it is. So I'll let you have your 101 because I'll take mine. And that's sticking with the Ravens and Kyle Hamilton.
You know me.
So that I Winfield's there, right? But man, again, just talking to back to what the Ravens do in the culture. They have never changed what their culture is, and that's just having a hard hitting, gritty, in your face type of defense. That could be paying to the AFC North, whatever it is. But Kyle Hamilton fits that role. And not only is Kyle Hamilton a hard hitting safety, he's a safety that can play anywhere. You can have him lined up in the box, you can have him lined up in the slot, you can have him lined up in the deep, to cover the secondary, all whatever you want, and he can do it. And last year he had 4 interceptions, elevated even more, with playing less. He had 81 tackles, playing one less game than he played his rookie season. When his rookie season, he had 55 tackles. So he's becoming accustomed to it. And like Roquan, they have that stack right now. Roquan and then Kyle Hamilton in the back. He's a do-it-all safety. I think this year, if not soon, not the following year, we're gonna finally see him get 100 tackles. And I think that's just gonna come. I mean, he's someone that's gonna fill up the stat sheets for you. He can again do it all. Interceptions, fumbles, a touchdown maybe if we get into that lucky he might get it this season, but just an all-around great safety, and he's only 23, so I'll take that and go ahead and ride his wave.
Heck yeah, man. So really quick, he also had a 3 sack game. Now that was the only 3 sacks he had all year, but the fact that he did it 3 times in one game, the dude can do it all. And I think it's hilarious. You did your homework on me a little bit. You absolutely knew who I was going to take 1-1. And you know what? On that same video that you're describing, I also said, I understand if Kyle Hamilton's your 1-1 at safety, or you're even your 1-2, or anywhere between 1 and 3. I think if you let him go past 3, you're probably overthinking it a little bit. And then to the point where you said they're kind of stacking, don't forget
Mhm,
Justin Madubuike on that defensive
mhm.
line as well. The Ravens have a scary defense at every level, and it sucks to see that as a Bengals fan. That's a heck of a pick. I don't blame you at all for taking Hamilton, but you know who
For
I'm
sure,
taking. I am
for sure.
taking Antoine Winfield Jr. Not only is he a legacy player, which is just always kind of cool to talk about, but he got that money this offseason.
Mhm,
And you said something earlier in this show here that kind of now makes me nervous saying that
mhm,
when people get paid, sometimes the foot's off the gas. When they
mhm,
achieve the dream, it's like, okay, cool, I can take a collective deep breath.
mhm,
I do not believe that that's who Antoine Winfield Jr. is, though. He's
mhm,
25 years old, and I think that he was signed that big money because he is going to be the focal point of the Buccaneers defense. Now, having the safety as a focal point may sound kind of crazy, but if you look at some of the all-time safeties, and Ed Reed, if you want to go back to the Ravens, you got people like John Lynch, if you want to go the Buccaneers lineage here, where you
mhm,
could rely on a guy like that to fire up your team, to strike fear into the offense, because lurking back there is a high caliber all time talent. Now, maybe it's early to say Antoine Winfield Jr. is an all time talent, but he's 25 years old. He achieved career highs. I like going with this line here, right? Career highs in every statistical category. And I believe he's just now entering his prime. So I do not believe that that was the peak. I believe that that was
mhm.
just a, hey, hello, league. I'm here now. You need to remember me. There's
For
nothing that the
sure.
guy can't do. He had 12 defended passes, he had 6 sacks, and 122 tackles. I believe that he's got a stable floor, but he also has a league winning upside. I think that if he truly hits his peak and he builds on these already insane numbers, or even if he does plateau and has these numbers, if you can get him and you can build a team where people are afraid to take safety early, and you can get a couple of linebackers and then steal Winfield Jr. maybe before the safety run goes in your dynasty startups or even in your redraft leagues, I think Antoine Winfield Jr. can absolutely win your league. Now, I got a question
For
for you
sure.
before we move on to your last and final pick. Where I don't know, man. I feel like you're playing chess with me here. Now that you're referencing some stuff I've done. If you had to choose between a Kyle Hamilton like player, where he's 23 and maybe we haven't seen the 100 tackle season, or a guy who maybe has had injuries and could be coming down. I could be tipping my hand here on my next pick, but would you
Mhm.
take the 28, 29-year-old who we've seen achieve high numbers when healthy but can't stay that way? Or would you rather take a chance on a Hamilton ascension?
Um, yeah, I mean, it really comes down like if we're playing Dynasty, I want the youth, right? And the guys that can't see the ascension and stuff. Um, Honestly, if we're talking about the same guy, that's my next pick probably. But I really think that
I'll try to talk you out of him.
yeah, I think it depends because sometimes too, it could be the team fit, and maybe it's not regardless if they're injured. Maybe the team is just going in a new direction. And that's something that's where it plays into when we play this game of fantasy football. Yes, we're playing the players, but it's important to know what the coaches are doing. Who are the defensive coordinators? Who are the offensive coordinators? If you want to get into it, look at the DB coaches, if you will, as well, because all that plays into a factor. And not necessarily that the veterans bad now, but maybe they got a new regime in the past couple of seasons, and now that new regime is something that doesn't fit the mold of what that veteran's doing. So going into like my guy here, if I'm
Don't
gonna
do it to
draft
me. Don't do it to me.
well, maybe not. So I don't know because there's two guys here that
Yep.
Derwin James might be that pick, but I'm not taking him. I'm not taking him
Oh,
because
okay.
I know people are heavy on him, and that's a great pick on having the injuries though. But my guy here, and I was blasting it all last year because he had 2 seasons where he didn't get 100 tackles, and I said, hey, he's on a new team. This team rebuilt his secondary.
This is my
He
other
is the
guy.
leader, and he is going to be that guy. And what did he come out and do? He came out and had 100 plus 132 tackles this past season, and that's Jesse Bates of the Atlanta Falcons.
Former
Um,
Bengal baby.
yeah, and I know people are heavy. Came out his rookie season, 100 plus tackles. Second season, 100 plus tackles. Third season, 100 tackles. And then he fell down past 2 years, and then they said, "Hey, we're gonna let you walk after his fifth season." Well, guess what? He came back, and that's the same feel. Is like I'm gonna rejuvenate myself. I'm gonna go out here and be this leader in the secondary, and that's exactly what he did. He came out, became that leader in secondary. I was a huge fan of Jesse Bates when he was with the Bengals. Again, I love the hard hitting safeties, the safeties that aren't afraid to necessarily go and get those tackles that you need. And Jesse Bates fits that mold. Derwin James, love him too. And I'm a Chargers fan because I'm live in Oregon. Justin Herbert, like the Ducks, love him. But I gotta go up my guy, man. I've been following Jesse Bates since he was a rookie, and I think he's someone that I feel like he's hitting that prime. Like they may have slept on him and said, man, they let him go. And I don't know if like Dax Hill and those guys are gonna do what Jesse Bates was doing. But I really like Jesse Bates, and I think he's gonna continue to be that leader in Atlanta for them. And especially for a team that is a little worrisome on who they have as their linebackers, right? They don't really have the star-studded linebacker that some
Right.
other teams have. Bates is kind of that green dot leader. He's not converted to green dot, but he's that green dot leader and that he
Right.
can call the plays and be the focal point of that defense.
All right, man. I love that analysis. Jesse Bates was a huge loss for the Bengals, and it was a very big point of contention, his contract in the city of Cincinnati. I think those last 2 seasons, that was the kind of the effort level he was giving. It was like, okay, if you're not going to invest in me, I'm not going to invest in you. You know, I got to look out for my future. And then, like you said, as soon as he went to another team, we got the old Jesse Bates back. We got a better version of Jesse Bates. And honestly, that's hilarious. He was my backup guy, but I'm taking Derwin James. You've got my last two picks, man. You've got me scouted. It's making me feel like you're in my head here, man. I need you to get out of there. Derwin, I've been a Derwin guy since day one. I probably invested too high draft capital in rookie drafts back in the day, but I do believe that it's paid off in some regard. 6 years in the league, which sounds like a lot, but he's only 27. He's got that injury downside. You know, you kind of know what you're getting with him. Okay. If he plays all the games, and he was one game shy of doing so last season, he was, again, career high in everything, or in tackles. I'm sorry, career high in tackles that he achieved this past season. And like I like that floor. I like the ability to build around a guy that you know what you're getting, but he can also affect the game in other categories. We've seen him over the years. He can make those big plays. He can sack the quarterback. He can get those TFLs if you're in a league that gives you points for that. And most importantly, he can defend the pass game, interceptions, forced fumbles. He can do it all. I think that with the signing of Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers are going to look to go back to more of an old school type of football. And what I mean by that is, Derwin James can get up in that box and he can play that hard nosed defense that I believe that Jim Harbaugh is going to try to establish on the Los Angeles Chargers. But at the same time, he is a player that is athletic enough that he is going to be utilized more so, I think, as a chess piece than he is a traditional safety or a traditional, run support type of player. Now, before we go, I like all of our draft picks here. I like the strategy that both of us employ, but I kind of wanted to we got probably about 3 minutes here left before I want to cut it off because I don't want to
Mhm.
go too long on this. What
Sure.
is your favorite strategy to employ in a dynasty startup draft when drafting IDPs? Do you like to
Um,
target a position first, target an age group first? What do you look for?
Yeah, man. I mean, we hit it on the money earlier. Linebackers are big, get the tackles. So I try to get my green dot linebackers out the gate and at least double dip in linebacker always. If I see them go, like say that we're gonna talk say your top five are off the board. Whether that be Roquan Foye, if you want to throw in Water, whoever there, maybe Okerke, Patrick Queen, maybe your top five are off. Then I might go into that Max Crosby fit, but I'm gonna definitely target my linebackers first. Safety's a little bit later because I can slide. I'm avoiding cornerbacks for the most part. Here and there, there's some good
Yep, me
cornerbacks,
too.
but for example, like Sauce Gardner, great NFL player.
Mhm.
But when they're a lockdown cornerback, that doesn't do anything for IDP fantasy. And
Right.
that's something I want to avoid, unless they're getting like 20 interceptions in a season. But that doesn't happen really, right? So
Right.
I want to make sure that I get my linebackers, my tackle machines, and then the safeties when I get them late, I want to make sure they're guys that I know will go after the ball, guys that have excellent pursuit on the ball, that can see and scan the field perfectly, and also get down in the line if they need to, and play that in that box area to not necessarily get the quarterback, but at least get that pressure so I know, hey, there's opportunity for them to stop the run and get those run stops too. So it really comes down to all around, but the linebackers are a must. I'm targeting green dots when I can,
Yep.
and I'll try to get them. I mean, in some IDP leagues, man, I'm getting my linebacker as early as like eighth, ninth round.
Yeah.
Because at that value, I feel your wide receivers that I'm like, man, I can pass on them. I'd rather have my LB1 at that point. So yeah, get your linebackers early, get safeties that get some tackles, and then avoid your cornerbacks, especially your shutdowns. As sexy as they are on the field,
Oh
they're
yeah.
not really good for your fantasy league.
Hey, I know I'm rocking a Sherman jersey, so what I'm saying may be super ironic here, but corners don't win you leagues. Corners just make you mad.
Right.
SC redacted Romero. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. You're the first person I've ever really gotten the opportunity to lead a show with. Thanks for being flexible with scheduling.
Yeah.
Heck of a guy. Give me a little bit about you. Where can we find your work? What are you working on right now? What do you love?
Yeah. Yeah, man. So one SC Romero at the PPR, so on X. Currently, me and Cali Kings, another guy with the RPO football, are working on our NFC South breakdowns. I'm doing offense, he's doing defense there, just breaking down our top guys and ranking where we think people will land out. I'm with the Fantasy Football Universe. I'm taking over their Devi site there. So I got some Devi
Nice.
Diamonds going on there. I got some Devi Dash breaking down some film. And we got tons of rookie profiles and good content on there as well. And then with the CFB Nation, speaking of Devi, that's one of my places where it's strictly college football, and I have our top five linebacker consensus for the 2025 class coming out soon. So be on the
Here we
lookout for
go.
that. But it
Never
starts in
too early.
college. Exactly. So we talk about some of these guys that Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith. I was watching these guys in college, man. It starts early. Scout these
Heck yeah.
guys. Don't scout the helmet, scout the players. But yeah, man, anything college football, IDP, that's where I'm at. C2C IDP leagues are gonna take over the fantasy football community one day.
Heck yeah, man. I love to hear it. And my name is Matthew Montgomery. You can find me on Twitter at MattMontyFF. I do all of my writing for footballguys.com, and then I do all the video content for RPO football. You're going to start seeing me over the next couple of weeks start a series of IDP breakouts this season and people who I'm also fading for the year. I've had a decent track record. It's funny when you start predicting the good ones, you want to run around and say, yeah, I'm the best. But then you see the ones that you were so wrong on. And it's just kind of funny to learn from that type of thing. So there's going to be a lot of
Right,
that this season. And
for sure.
then throughout the year, I like to do the Dynasty IDP stock market where we're buying and selling stocks and we're going to hold on some. So we're going to be looking for that this upcoming season. Once again, SC Romero, thank you so much for doing this, man. We are on different time zones. I'm Eastern, you're in Pacific time. We are still making this work. My brother from Oregon, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.